Okay, so welcome everyone. Good to see you. Today we have the second part actually of Peter's question. Again, he was asking, and I was discussing this last Tuesday. I was wondering whether resting your attention on energy flows that occur as a result of breathing in and out is also a good way to make the breath more beautiful. So I decided to split up these teachings into two parts. On Tuesday we're discussing the various perceptions concerning the breath, how we can change our perception in relation to the breath. And today I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can actually use the breath itself or change the breath itself to help you feel more comfortable. What Peter refers to when he talks about the so-called beautiful breath is a very comfortable sensation that comes with breathing, particularly when your mind stabilizes on the breath. The thing is, your mind wouldn't stabilize on the breath if it isn't comfortable, if you don't enjoy it. Usually, for the mind, it's going to be very easy to get absorbed in something if it feels really good. If it doesn't feel good, the mind will very likely have aversion towards it, ill will towards it, and so it cannot rest with it. It's like you cannot cuddle up with someone that you hate. It's impossible. If you just had a fight with your spouse, it's going to be really difficult to cuddle up right after the fight. So it needs some time to settle down. You can rest a little bit and then say sorry and then move on. And it takes a bit of a process so you can cuddle up again. The same if you want to cuddle up with your breath, if you want to have a good time with your breath, which essentially is required when you practice breathing meditation. You want to get absorbed into your breath. But that there is something that keeps us from getting absorbed into the breath, which is distraction. And distraction arises naturally as a result of having ill will towards your breath, having aversion towards your breath, not really liking your breath. So the mind kind of prefers to go elsewhere. That's what we call distraction. If you really would enjoy your breath, distraction cannot be there. It's impossible for distraction to arise if you enjoy something. Yeah. Like the first date with your lover. If you have your first date, you don't think about other stuff. You're fully there. You really enjoy it. Right? But then you have already 20, 30 dates, then it becomes kind of an old thing and you start to distract yourself a little bit more. So when we are staying with our breath, it's really important to make it comfortable. So last Tuesday, this week actually, Tuesday, I was talking about the perceptions that you can have concerning your breath. That might be helpful for you. Now there's an infinite amount of various perceptions that you can create. It really means just changing your viewpoints, changing the beliefs that you have concerning your breath. For example, now, most people have the belief that when I breathe in, my lungs are filling with air, and then I breathe out through the nose, and that's that. But if you open your perception a little bit more and allow for other feeling possibilities to exist, then you can play with that. For example, you can play, for a beginner, is very nice to bring the breath a little bit deeper into your body. Feel that the breathing energy doesn't just stop in your chest, but actually sinks down all the way into your belly as you breathe in. That's a change of perception, which in turn leads to a change of breathing actually. Because of that visualization, because of the different type of viewpoint that you have now, the type of breathing also changes. So changing your perception could also mean that you're changing the idea where the breath comes from. You could breathe in through your ears. Try. Yeah. And when you really go into this perception, you actually start feeling that you're breathing in through your ears. There is a feeling that starts to match up with the perception after a while. That's a very funny thing that happens. All it takes is allow the possibility in your mind to be there. and then play with these various possibilities. You might also feel that your breath comes in through the earth, into your spine, moving up into your body, like something that's rising up in your body as you breathe in, as you breathe out. You might breathe out through your pores. You can be as fancy as you want. But the point is, you want to feel comfortable. It needs to feel really good. It doesn't help if you visualize your breath coming in through your ears and out through your tips of your hair, if it doesn't feel good. There's no point in that. It needs to feel good. Another way of changing your perception is in terms of what the breath does to you. You can perceive it as a healing force entering your body. You can visualize it as a steam filling your whole body, healing everything that needs healing. And then really trust that this is actually happening. If you're not really trusting in it, then it doesn't really work. Your perception is incredibly powerful. Your beliefs are incredibly powerful. They shape your reality as you go along. A very good example of that, scientific example even, is a placebo effect. It's very well known that you eat a medication that has absolutely no ingredients that are in any way effective, but they are suddenly effective. If you give them to someone and tell them this is a very strong, powerful medicine, they take it and it works. It also works the opposite way. It can also make you sick. Yeah. They had a testing group. They had like two groups in which they were testing one pill that would make you sleepy and one pill that would make you wake up, right? And they gave the pill that would wake you up to a group and told them this is going to make you really sleepy, and the pill that wakes you up that we're giving, the pill that made you sleepy, give to the other group and say this one will wake you up. And it worked. So some people were taking sleeping pill feeling energized. Yeah. It actually does work. So if your belief, your perception is very strongly directed towards something, then you are actually manifesting a certain perception of reality. Your reality starts to be according to your perception. And knowing that, it doesn't matter anymore whether it is real or not what you imagine. What matters is your perception of it, is your belief in this perception strong enough or not? That's what matters then. Then you can use your perceptions, your belief systems, your thoughts to create a certain way of thinking, a certain way of living, a certain way of leading your life, which is very empowering. The beliefs that you have about yourself right now, the thoughts that you hold about yourself right now, this is what is shaping your life. This is what makes you make decisions as you go along. So if you change the way you habitually think, your habitual beliefs about yourself and the world and other people and so forth, the way you interact with these things will change. I'm not saying that if you believe that someone else is a certain way that they will change, but your interaction with them will change, and in turn that will change the way they react to you. So you have very good chances to improve your life in various ways like this. So this is the power of perception. We covered that a bit more extensively last time. Today it's more about breathing types. For example, in some of the discourses the Buddha mentions breathing in short, you're breathing in short. Breathing out short, breathing out short. Breathing in long, breathing in long. Breathing out long, breathing out long. So this gives us an opportunity to explore a little bit what types of breath have what kind of effect on your body, what kind of effect on your mind. Like, let's say you're feeling really nervous and restless. Many people do. They come into their meditation practice and they feel incredibly restless. What kind of breathing would help you to slow right down? You can actually use the type of breath, the style of breath itself, to change from restless to rested. People subconsciously already use that. If you have a stage fright and your body comes and says, just take a deep breath. And if that person has some experience with breath work, then what they do is they guide you through it. Let me count to 5. And you breathe in until I arrive at 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now stop for 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now breathe out for 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's just one breath cycle, and it will have an effect on how you feel. And you can do this to yourself if you have a panic attack. Now some people, they have panic attacks. It's actually a quite frequent phenomenon. Many people do have panic attacks. And when you have a panic attack, what happens with your breath? It becomes short, it becomes kind of like really tight, it becomes really uncomfortable to breathe, so you feel like you want to take a deep breath, but it doesn't really work. And then the breath can kind of spiral in such a way that you think, I'm going to die, and then it leads to a rapid heartbeat, which in turn leads to more fear and to a faster breath and a faster heartbeat. It's like a vicious cycle like that. So how can you break that? You can break it being very physical. First of all, you need to wake up. That means know that you're having a panic attack right now. That's the first requirement. So that should not be too hard. Okay, that's a panic attack. I'm having a panic attack right now. Stop everything you're doing. Sit down somewhere. And then start to breathe very slowly. Count the breath. Like we did just now. Taking in a long in-breath. 5. Count up to 5. And your mind wants to pull you back to the fact, you're going to die, this is it. Come back to the counting. Help yourself. So in case of a panic attack, you kind of need to become your own nurse. You need to be there at your side and guide yourself and help yourself. That's what self-love means. When you're not feeling good, you're taking care of yourself. You're not just distracting yourself from it. You learn to work with the problem at hand, as it is there. That is incredibly empowering. The first few times when you notice that you are not fully consumed by the panic, and you actually have something that you can do when a panic arises, that gives you a sense of strength, of power. And then if you nourish that, you get more and more strong. And each panic attack, when it comes, you'll be like, there it is again. I know what to do. I know what this is. And I know what will happen now. I'm going to freak out for a little bit, but that's okay. And this is how you take away the power from the panic. You're okay with it. You're okay with freaking out. And then you have your tool, you use your breath. This is your anchor. This is what keeps you stable. So you want to come back to it again and again. Center yourself with it. And then the style of breathing is really important. Maybe you can gradually slow your breath down. Maybe don't start with 5. You might not be able to do that. Maybe you can start with 2. Then 3. Count to 3. And if no one is around, you have to kind of walk yourself through this. But now you have a tool, you have a technique. You're not just helpless anymore. And that can already be quite calming and comforting. This is what people need. When they have a panic attack, they need certainty. I need to know that I'm okay. And you will see that we had once we were working in a resort, and there was another couple that was in a room, and the woman suddenly had a panic attack. And she started hyperventilating, and the husband didn't know what to do. He's like, oh my God, what's happening to her? What's happening to her? And it made her panic like worse. And then they called the medics, and the medics came in, and they were really cool and calm with her, talking really slow and calm and friendly, like treating as if nothing really would have happened there. It's okay, it's not a big deal. What's your name? They were just kind of distracting her from the panic. And they're just guiding her slowly to a calmer state. So you can use your thoughts, but that is difficult when you're having panic. It's more easy to use something really physical, like the breath. Now, on the other hand, if you're not having a panic attack, but you're kind of really drowsy, practicing meditation, you get really drowsy, you can use your breath to lift the energy in your body again, mostly together with your perception, but the type of breathing also is important. What kind of breath is there right now? How do you guide yourself right now with your breath? The question is, how do you make yourself comfortable right now? Don't just surrender to being uncomfortable. But what could you do right now? How could you breathe right now to make it a bit better? I'm not talking about, how could you breathe right now so you end up in heaven right now. But how could you breathe right now to feel a little bit better? See, that's doable. And it immediately makes your attention turn within. Makes your attention come back to yourself. It gets out of the cloud of thoughts into the body, which in itself is you're becoming present through the breath. You are dealing with something that's real, not a fiction in your head. Such as, will I be able to breathe deeply next time I have a panic attack? It's irrelevant. Can you breathe deeply now? That's relevant. And if you do that often enough, then you will be able to do that even when you have a panic attack. But kind of trying to figure out, will I be fine in the future, is irrelevant. The question is, are you fine now? And if you make that the central point of your life, am I fine now? And what can I do to improve it a little bit? Give myself a little bit of a better feeling. Now, not in 5 minutes. How can you feel better in 10 minutes? It's irrelevant. And it doesn't matter at all. What matters is how can you feel better right now, right? So the practice always and only is ever now. And so how are you breathing right now? What's your breath like? Is the in-breath longer than the out-breath? Shorter? Is it kind of changing, or is it regular? Is it comfortable? I'm asking you to do this right now. Right? This is not for after the class, when you're back home. Or let's see, after the class, will I be able to look at my breath and do the same thing? Irrelevant. Now, how is it? Is it comfortable? What could you do right now to make it a bit more comfortable? A bit more easeful, a bit more relaxing. A little bit. Not much. And so you can change many things here now, right? The length of your breath. Does that make a difference? How can you breathe long without stressing out? Like when you're taking it too long, when your breath becomes too long, then you start to become stressed because you're not having enough oxygen. So what's just the right length to relax you and at the same time I'm feeling good? Is there more air coming in through your left nostril or the right one? How far down does the air go? When you follow the flow of air, until which part in the body do you actually feel the air? Is it up until the back of your throat? You feel the air there, back of your throat? The coolness of the air? How about a bit further down? Like the area of the clavicles, do you still feel it there? Upper part of your lungs, you still feel the coolness? A lower part of the lungs. You see, this requires attention. But it's not hard because it's nice. You're practicing for comfort and pleasure. You're not practicing to feel more uptight and more tense about yourself, right? Now watch out for your perceptions. You might go something like, this is rubbish, it doesn't work. Or you might feel like, I just want to get out of here. What can you do right now to help yourself feel a bit better? You might feel really happy. Now how can you enhance that? Where in your body do you feel comfortable right now? That's another one. Is there any spot in your body that feels really good? Locate it. Which area feels best right now? For me, it's the left arm, the lower arm here, down here. It feels really good right now. You found your spot? Now breathe into it. Allow the comfort to expand with the breath together. Try it out. Really keep your mind from going into the painful spots. Bring it to the comfortable spots. Allow the comfort to grow. Breathe into it. Does that feel good? As you breathe out, let it spread out a little bit. Also requires a certain way of breathing. Maybe a very long breathing. You're actually pulling the air into that comfortable spot. Or working with a painful spot. Breathing in, pulling the air into this painful spot. As you breathe out, allowing it to become a little bit more soft. A little bit more relaxing. Feeling confident, it's already healing. You're using the way you breathe and your perception together. Balancing each other. Perception and type of breath. And the whole goal of this is to make you feel really good with your breath. The point of feeling really good with your breath is to counteract ill will. One of the 5 obstacles in meditation practice is ill will. It's the second one. It means not liking yourself, not liking your breath, not liking meditation. You're going to have a really hard time. Either one of those 3. Not liking yourself, not liking your breath, not liking meditation. It will not work. The biggest one, not liking yourself. You're sitting on a little square right now, it's just you. If you don't like yourself, All you want is just get out of it. Stop it. And that is manifesting in distraction, as distraction. Well, let's think about this, let's think about that. Because it's just not so comfortable being you. Because of ill will, aversion. If that falls away, meditation will be really smooth. Now, one way to greatly enhance this whole thing and to get out of ill will is kindness. Metta. To be really kind, really soft. To open your heart for your breath. To open your heart for the way you are now. To accept it. To be okay with it. It's fine to be this little messy human being that I am, and it's perfectly okay. We're not trying to become different. But if you're not comfortable with who you are, well, you're not going to be more comfortable by meditating. Unless you meditate properly and you give yourself kindness. But if you use meditation as another tool to kind of forcefully change yourself into someone that is more likable, it will not work. It's all coming from the same kind of ill will. I don't like myself, let me use meditation to change myself so I can be more likable. It won't work. But can you be okay with yourself? That's a bit off topic. It's not directly about how to change the way you breathe. There's not much to talk about, really. But what's more important than all these things, your perceptions or the way you breathe, the guiding principle of meditation must be kindness. If it is not, you're not getting anywhere with it. And what do you think? Can kindness be forced? Can you force yourself to be more kind? Of course not. So what is kindness rooted in? Kindness is rooted in acceptance. Is that always the first step? To accept the way it is. Go from there. So how is it now? Really uncomfortable. Can you accept that? Can you be okay with being uncomfortable? Really confusing. I'm so confused right now. Don't know what to do, how to breathe, who should I be, how does this meditation thing work? Are you okay with confusion even? Is it all right to be confused? If you're not kind, you say, no, confusion has no place. Pain has no place. I should be always happy, should be always wise and knowledgeable. I should always know perfectly what to do at all times. Welcome to the realm of fiction. Such a thing doesn't exist. Always happy, always wise, always feeling pleasurable, impossible. So we got to learn, and that's a big part of meditation, to make friends with what is. Who you are. If there's confusion, accept it. It'll make a big difference. If you're fighting your confusion, you're negating an essential aspect of yourself. You kind of cut away that little piece that you don't really like. It's almost like cosmetic surgery. You just cut it away. I don't like it. Just get rid of it. That's not what we do. It's not cosmetic surgery. Meditation is not cosmetic surgery. Meditation is seeing truth and making friends with it, being okay with who you are. Everything else is a learned behavior. We have learned not to be okay with who we are. And that learning just goes round and round, doesn't it? Like, you should get more of this, and maybe you will one day if you just do this, and then after that you can do this. And Visualization and having goals and ambition, that's all nice. But if that's all you have, if visualization, ambitions and goals is all you have, the most essential part of you is not integrated, which is your being. Visualization, goals, ambition is all about becoming someone else. In that way, it could all be referred to as a certain aversion to what is. Therefore, I have a lot of goals because I don't like what is. I'm not at peace with what is. So I desperately try to get out of it to somewhere else. That's aversion. I'm not saying it's bad to have goals or ambition is a very necessary part of life. And I encourage you to have a clear direction and knowing very clearly what you want. That's important. But if that's all you have, wanting, and if there is absolutely no being, that's going to be frustrating, I guarantee you, because you will never arrive. Doesn't matter how many wants you fulfill, you will never be there. It's that general sense of not being here that is frustrating for many people. So the most successful people have that. They have everything, they've achieved a lot of things, but they're restless. Literally, restless. As soon as they sit down somewhere, they're very fidgety. Their mind is hurting. It's ill. It's not at ease. What do you do? What do you do? Accept it. Oh, restlessness. Now breathe. Take a few really deep breaths. Calm, slow. Allow yourself to settle. You're fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Gotta tell yourself this sometimes. It's okay. It's alright. Having a panic attack, feeling sad for no reason. It's okay. I'm a human being sitting here, being human. And that's okay. Even though we all have learned that it's not quite okay and you need more. So that hopefully later it'll be okay. But it is okay. You are okay. And so to learn to trust in that, breath can be a bridge. It helps you to kind of connect to yourself. It's a benefit of taking a few deep breaths, like really stopping yourself in what you're doing right now, hurting yourself, harming yourself, and so forth. Stop. Take a few deep breaths. Also, before you respond to someone, take a few deep breaths. Someone in your face, criticizing you, blaming you, giving you a hard time, take a few deep breaths before you respond. Before you say that thing. That's a wonderful practice in relationships. Just hold your guns, don't shoot. Just don't shoot prematurely. Don't hurt or come from pain if you can avoid. In fact, at first take a few deep breaths, then see where it takes you from there. You stop before you act. This is a skill, this is wisdom. And then naturally, over time, when you meditate more and more, your mind becomes more calm because you're enjoying yourself. So the mind stabilizes there. It doesn't move anywhere else because you're kind of at ease. It's nice. Now what will happen to the breath when this is the case? When the mind becomes very still and refined. Anyone here that has some experience with meditation, Paul, what is happening when the mind becomes really still with your breath? What have you observed? The breath disappears, exactly. And that sounds really weird, right? You've got to experience this for yourself. When the mind becomes absolutely solid and still, the breath follows in track. It just does the same thing. And then you will notice the real relationship between your mind and your breathing. And then what happens when you see that there is no breath? You go, oh, I'm not breathing. That's when the breath starts again. You've been feeling perfectly fine without breath for God knows so long. You were just sitting there in bliss. And all of a sudden you notice, not breathing. And you snap right back into breath. And that goes back and forth for a long time until you learn to trust that. You allow the breath to literally disappear from your awareness. It'll still go on in a very subtle way in the body. It's almost as if you were breathing through your skin. It's just a little tiny movement of energy that's in the body. Just a little vibration that's left there. And I trust that it goes even into more stillness later on. I'm just not qualified about that. I can't talk about it. But so far you can notice that when the mind becomes really still, the energy in the body, the breath in the body become extremely still. Still like you have never experienced before. It's overwhelming and it's beautiful. And a funny thing happens in that stillness. There is a huge amount of happiness and joy. Naturally. It's almost like it just comes from within, from inside of yourself. I call that true happiness. It's not a happiness that is dependent on conditions. No, sorry, it is dependent on the mind being calm. It's not a happiness that is dependent on outside factors. Say it like that. Like, woo, I got a new car, or yeah, I don't have to do the visa run, or something like that. Whatever it is, you're feeling happy for a short moment. Oh, that food is great. But that's just very fleeting and short. It doesn't have really any substance. The deepest type of happiness is already within you, and when all the rubbish stops, that's when that can shine. Then all the learning and the conditioning of our minds has stopped. That's when you're naturally just happy. So you could say like this, that true happiness comes from just being still. That's when your mind receives energy. Your body is quite the opposite. It receives life force and energy from movement. The movement of digestion, the movement of your heart pumping, the movement of breath. Movement is life in terms of the body, but in terms of the mind, life is stillness. And incessant movement is what strips you of energy. This is the biggest energy sucker, is the mind constantly active, even when it doesn't have to be active. You might say, yes, intellect is great. It is. But not constantly. You don't need it. You don't need it at 2 a.m. in the morning in the bed, worrying about the possible outcomes of tomorrow's meeting. You don't need the intellect at that point. You need to sleep. You need to rest. When you meditate, you don't need to think about anything. You could just relax. That's the problem, right? You don't really have control over it. It just runs. So we need to learn not to buy into it slowly, and it will fade, it will stop. Take a few deep breaths. Stay with the breathing. Notice the breathing. Follow through. Really learn to be with your breath, and do that through the entire day. That's what matters. It's not so important to do that like once a day or twice, like for half an hour. That's good, but what's more important is the other 22 hours. If they are just devoted to distraction, it doesn't take you very far. You're a personal trainer, you know that if you're serious about fitness, it has to become a lifestyle. The same is true for mental training and so forth. If you're serious about happiness, it has to become a lifestyle. That doesn't mean just sitting a little bit on a little mat every morning and then that's that. It's like I'm doing 10 push-ups in the morning and then I just eat junk food and for the rest of the day sit on my couch and watch TV. And then the next morning I do 10 push-ups just to make myself feel a bit better. I did my 10 push-ups. Some people are chain smokers and then they do this jogging thing. just to feel like they do something. So meditation has to be a thing that you do now. The synonym for now is all the time. This is the same thing, right? Now and all the time? Same thing. It's just two different expressions. Is there any time that is not now? Is it ever not now? Can you ever find a point of your life when it's not now? Even when you're thinking about your past, you do it now, don't you? It's a memory that arises now. Spaghetti that you had yesterday. You think about them now. The possible future scenario, think about it now. There is just now. There's nothing else. So that's where we do our work. Now. Take a few deep breaths. Relax. Start with that. Then stay with your breath, make it comfortable, enjoy yourself. It's this rampant idea that if you just worry enough, your future is going to be fine. All you need to do is just worry about it enough now. Then your future will sort itself out. This is ridiculous. Worrying does not create a nice future. It creates a horrendous now. And that's where the future comes from. It creates a next moment, a next horrendous now. It's just a habit of worrying. If that doesn't go away, nothing will change. So take a few deep breaths. Come back to what matters now and here, your life. Breathe in, breathe out, feel it. Regulate the breath, make yourself comfortable. Find the comfortable spot, allow it to grow, go deeper into it, rest on it, be kind to yourself. Take it easy, take it slowly, but be consistent with it. That's the key. Okay, so that's pretty much all that comes to mind for this week. There's, again, so much to be said about breath and perceptions and so forth. But that's all for today.